Folks, before we actually start the service, if you don't have a candle, would you raise your hand so someone can get one to you? Okay. All right. Right over there, and Pat Webb too. Thank you. Because you'll need it for later in the service. Yes. Oh, and over here too? Okay. Very good. Okay, and now we'll begin our service with a prelude. Thanks, Alejandra. Good evening, everyone. I'm Tony Larson, Minister Emeritus of Olympia Brown Unitarian Universalist Church, and I am going to light our chalice, our UU chalice, symbol of the light of truth, the warmth of love, and the fire of justice. I'd like to welcome you, all of you, and thank you for coming to the service to honor Ellen Hyndman Schmidt. Your presence here is a gift to Ellen's family, and it's also a symbol of the sacredness of human life. Because a human life is sacred, so is its ending, and that's why we're here. Those of us who knew Ellen personally, and even those who know and love people she knew and loved, all of us are gathered here in her remembrance. And I want to mention something. You know, every life that ends leaves a sense of incompleteness, like a song that's only partially sung. And yet every life also gives an opportunity to finish that song. And since Ellen loved music of all kinds, loved it, taught it, performed it, sang it, let me say something about Giacomo Puccini, who wrote a number of operas, some of the best the world has ever heard, like La Bohème and Madame Butterfly. Well, you know, Puccini got sick when he was about 65 years old. He got cancer, and he knew he would die fairly soon. And his friends told him that now that he was sick, he should take it easy and rest. But he said, no, I want to work on one last opera before I die. And if I don't finish it in time, I want you, my friends, to finish it for me. So he did. He spent his last days writing Turandot, but he didn't finish it. And his friends were left with an incompleteness and an opportunity. And, you know, they could just mourn their friend's death and leave his last work incomplete, or they could build on the song he started. So they decided to build on the song, and in 1926, 2 years after Puccini died, almost exactly 100 years ago, they put on his last opera in Milan, Italy, at the La Scala Opera House. And it was conducted by the famous conductor Toscanini. And when they came to the part where Puccini had stopped because he had died, Toscanini turned to the audience and said, with tears in his eyes, "This is where the master ends." But then he lifted up his head and said with a smile, "And this is where his friends began." And they finished the opera. We're kind of at the same place here. We are here, some perhaps with tears in our eyes because Ellen's life has ended. But we are also at a crossroads. We can just mourn the passing of a song, or we can build on it. We can finish the work, take up where Ellen left off, and in our own lives, give flesh to values and gifts that she embodied. That's our choice here. And so it's good that we have come together. We're in the middle of a song. Let us carry it on with beauty and harmony and joy. And in fact, let's sing a song right now, a hymn we've done at church for child dedications and youth affirmation and graduation services and funerals and memorial services. It's number 354 in the gray hymnal, "We Laugh, We Cry." Please rise in body or spirit. We laugh, we cry, we live, we die, we dance, we sing our song. We need to feel there's something here to which we can belong. We need to feel the freedom just to have some time alone. Most of all, we need close friends we can call our very own. And we believe in life and in the strength of love. And we have found a need to be together. We have our hearts to give. We have our thoughts to receive. And we believe that sharing is an answer. A child is born among us, and we feel a special glow. We see time's endless journey as we watch the baby grow. We thrill to hear imagination freely running wild. We dedicate our minds and hearts to the spirit of His child, and we believe in life and in the strength of love, and we have found a time to be together. We have a grace of it, share the wonder of youth, and they will linger on, and we believe in life and in the strength of love, and we have found a place to be together. We have the right to grow. We have the gift to believe that peace within our living is an answer. We seek elusive answers to the questions of this life. Seek to put an end to all the waste of human strife. We search for truth, equality, and blessed peace of mind. And then we come together here to make sense of what we found. And we believe in life and in the strength of love and in the round of joy being together. And in our search for peace, maybe we'll finally see, even to question truly is an answer. Be seated. People always kid around that Unitarians don't sing well because they're looking into the next line to see if they agree with it. And but you were great. You were great. You were wonderful. Ellen's husband John and daughter Liesl chose a couple readings for this service. And the first is for her role as a lifelong teacher, whether as a religious education director at Olympia Brown Church, or children's or youth choir director, or teaching at Montessori, or giving Suzuki lessons and leading adult religious education, you name it, she was a teacher, the best kind. And it's written by that famous author, Anne Onimus, who's written so many good things. Rest now, you who have taught. To you we entrusted our children, and they rise up to thank and bless you. Men and women whose lives are good because you helped to make them so. Rest undisturbed, for your work is done, and we are grateful. Rest forever. The world's burdens are now our burdens. Because of you, we are better able to bear them. Rest now with our blessing and our benediction. And the next reading, also by the same author, is for Ellen's role as a mom, a parent, and not just of her own children, but her niece, her foster child, and a lot of other kids, including some grown-up ones now, who thought of her as their extra mom. Blessed are they who raise their families in honor and gentleness, who live upright lives, courageous lives, who live life in its fullness, do their part, and then at eventide retire to rest. Though pain be in the heart, let none grieve too long, for here a gentle soul has cast its glow upon us, and like the glory of an autumn sun has lit the world with kindness through the day, and at the close has gently sunk to rest. Rather, rejoice for that which she has given, the light we know and treasure still within our hearts, a light we trust still shines beyond the distant peaks, for life goes on and spirit knows no death. And the next reading is a short poem by C.D. Lewis. This one's just for Ellen's personality as a whole, and this will be read by her granddaughter, Anna. Oh, actually, Hold on a second. We have one more just before that. I got a little mixed up in the beginning.
No worries.
But Ellen would be, just be hanging around. All right. So this one I'm going to read, but it's by C.D. Lewis. Her laughter was better than birds in the morning. Her smile turned the edge of the wind. Early she went to bed. Too early we saw her light put out. Yet we could not grieve more than a little while, for she lives in the earth around us. She laughs from the sky. And the next reading will be read by her granddaughter, Anna. And this is from Life Prayers from around the world.
When I die, if you need to weep, cry for your brother or sister walking the street beside you. And when you need me, put your arms around anyone and give them what you need to give to me. I want to leave you something better than words or sounds. Look for me in the people I've known or loved. And if you cannot give me away, at least let me live in your eyes and not just in your mind. You can love me most by letting hands touch hands and by letting go of children that need to be free. Love doesn't die, people do. So when all that's left of me is love, give me away.
And our next reading from the poet Conrad Aiken will be read by Ellen's son, Steve.
Music I heard with you was more than music, and bread I broke with you was more than bread. Your hands once touched this table and this silver, and I have seen your fingers hold this glass. These things do not remember you, beloved, and yet your touch upon them will not pass. For it was in my heart you moved among them, and blessed them with your hands and with your eyes. And in my heart they will remember always they knew you once, O beautiful and wise.
This last reading is attributed to Ralph Waldo Emerson, although I'm not sure he wrote it. We can't find evidence of it for sure, but it's one that I know Ellen really liked. In fact, I think it was used at her own mother's service. It's about how we know whether a life has been successful, and this will be read by the Reverend Hannah Roberts Villeneuve. I'm just one of 2 UU ministers who sprung up from our church and knew Ellen and were influenced by her. And so here's the reading that may have been written by Emerson or by someone else, but in any case was endorsed by Ellen Schmidt, and that's all that matters.
To appreciate beauty, to find the best in others, to give one's self, to leave the world a little better, whether by a healthy child, a garden patch, or a redeemed social condition. To have played and laughed with enthusiasm and sung with exultation. To know even one life has breathed easier because you have lived. This is to have succeeded.
Thanks, Hannah. I believe that by those criteria, Ellen lived a very successful life. A life whose flame still burns in our lives and will continue to burn as we take the light she gave us and use it to kindle other flames where hope has died or love has faded. And in all of this, we remain glad that someone like Ellen entered our lives and blessed our days and lives even now in our hearts. Would you join now in a litany from the gates of prayer? Your response after each line I say will be, "We remember her." At the rising of the sun and at its going down, at the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, at the opening of the buds and in the rebirth of spring, at the shining of the sun and in the warmth of summer, at the rustling of the leaves and in the beauty of autumn, at the beginning of the year and at its end, when we are weary and in need of strength, when we are lost and sick at heart, when we have decisions that are difficult to make, when we have achievements that are based on hers. As long as we live, Ellen too will live, for she is now a part of us as we remember. Let us pray. Spirit of life, the love we can no longer give to Ellen, help us give to those who need it. Make our compassion deeper, our sympathy wider. Let our sorrows melt away our bitterness and teach us to be gentle. Save us from frozenness of heart, if so much that is precious can so soon be lost. Help us cherish what remains, and let us be the nurturer of things precious in the lives of others. Spirit of life, when there is nothing to guide us in the present, let us be guided by the insights of the past. Let not bereavement blind us to what is good and lovely still. Let us see it through our tears until again we see it plainly. Blessed be, and amen. I light this candle to symbolize the light and the life that will always be here in our lives by the difference Ellen's life has made. We will not extinguish this flame during the service because the light goes on in all of us. And as the choir comes up, let me mention that Ellen sang the song you're about to hear at many other people's memorial services. This time, the choir is singing it for her. And just as importantly, they're singing it for us. Ellen used to sing with that, so did John. If any of you live long enough, when I die, I want that at my service too. Back in 1930, a traveler was exploring the French Alps, and he came upon a kind of a patch of empty land. It looked rather desolate, kind of ugly actually, but he saw an old man in the middle of it walking along with a 4-foot-tall iron pipe, and every few feet the man would stamp the pipe into the ground. Basically, he was burying acorns in the earth. And the traveler talked to the old man, and who said, well, his wife and son had died in a tragic accident, and he decided to spend his last days doing something that would be useful after he was gone. And he said, I've planted over 100,000 acorns. Maybe only a tenth of them will survive. Well, 35 years later, in 1965, the traveler who had met the old man went back to the same part of the French Alps, and he couldn't believe what he saw. The land was no longer empty and desolate. It was covered with a beautiful forest of acorn trees, and there were birds in the trees and wild animals living all around. Now, of course, not every acorn the man planted grew into a tree. Probably some of the ground was too rocky to support a tree, or maybe some animals ate some of the seedlings before they could grow into trees, but enough to survived to leave a forest. And this old man, who's long dead and forgotten, and we don't even know his name, this man actually kind of changed the world for those who would come after him. And in that way, he still lives on. He lives on in the trees he left behind. Each of us is kind of like that old man. We all leave behind a world that is different because of the seeds we planted. Whether it's a better world or not depends on whether we've been planting seeds or weeds. But every person who ever lives leaves behind a part of themselves. And that's why the people who've gone before us are never completely gone. They live on for us in all the ways we've changed the world. And we too, after we die, we will still be here in whatever ways we have changed others' lives. And so I ask you to remember Ellen's life and think about the seeds she planted and the flowers and forests she left behind. I remember the first time I met Ellen Schmidt. I remember the very day. And it was because I was at church when we were still meeting at Olympia Brown Church across the street. And at the end of the service, I saw a woman who said, "Hi, my name is Ellen Schmidt, and came from Mequon, but we've just moved to Kenosha." And I said, "Oh my God, I've been waiting for you." And she looked, and I said, "Your minister, Dale Robinson, told me that he was so sad that you were leaving, that you were moving out of the area because John's practice was, going to be in Kenosha. And he said, look for them, and if they come, grab onto them, snatch them up." So I did, and I found out later from Ellen that she had actually come one earlier time when we used to have services. In the summer, the church used to close down. We used to say we were the only church God trusted to be out of her sight for 3 months, so we would just close down. But eventually we started having summer services in the park, just a few blocks away. And she had seen that on the signboard and thought, okay, if this is where the Unitarians are, this is before I think I met her at the church, and she saw people gathered in the park, and I had a white robe, and I had long hair and a beard, and she thought, oh my God, it's Jesus. So I think was she walking with you? And they were walking around the block, listening carefully to see how bad it was, and then they realized it was okay. So anyway, so we're really glad. There are lots of things I'll remember about Ellen. I remember the games she taught us when we were having overnights, how to get everyone to sit down on each other's lap in a circle, playing sardines, and she would play with us and hide along in various interesting places under the floor and everything. John and Ellen taught the about your sexuality class, and one of the things I remember is that they would give the kids M&Ms so that when they would pretend so-called going out on a date with someone, they'd give them an M&M, and it would turn out that some of them were STDs. And this is how you learned about STDs. And there was a song she wanted me to sing to the young people. This was, I think, a high school group, and it's called "Let's Talk Dirty to the Animals." And I won't sing it for you, maybe quietly later somewhere else. But it was on the first night when they're trying to get the kids kind of desensitized to all the bad words that there are, so that the kids would feel comfortable in using whatever word they were comfortable with for various body parts, that sort of thing. And so it was a big hit, and the kids loved it. The trouble was later on, some of the kids wanted me to play it for other kids that they knew, and eventually the church board said, no more, no more. So, but I remember they, doing the theology of the Wizard of Oz, or UU revivals. We would go to different places to do them, singing John Denver songs and Beatles songs, and saying Your Peace. And also she wrote a song in the days before we had the 7 principles and then the 6 values around love. We just needed a song that the kids could learn so that they would be able to explain to other kids when they visited other congregations what we believed in. And so she called it the 3 commandments of Unitarian Universalism, but it was love your neighbor as yourself, love the world and make it better, search for truth with an open mind. That's religion, the UU way. How can I show that I love my neighbor? How will he know that I really care? I can be kind and I can be helpful and do for her what I like for me. See, very modern, up to date. Love you. So it went on like that. Some of you I noticed noted it. So there's just so many little ways that she influenced my life and everyone else's. And you'll be hearing from a number of people who were touched by Ellen's life in a few moments. But let me just say that one of the things I learned from Ellen was how to live without worrying too much about getting credit for any good things I might do. Ellen was happy to do good because she knew that doing good was fulfilling in itself. You didn't need a reward or to be paid back or to have people praise you. She thought that virtue was its own reward. I mean, I've always known that in theory, and it's something I've often preached about, but Ellen was living proof that it was true. In that way, she was a model of ministry to me. Not just ministry as in doing church things, but ministry in the sense that all of our lives we do ministry, whether we have a title or a medal or a certificate for it. To love and sacrifice and give without feeling burdened or put upon, but with joy and laughter, especially laughter at yourself for all your own foibles. Ellen was the first one to laugh at her own. This was Ellen. This is how she lived. This is why I told you the story of the man in the Alps who planted all the acorn trees. That's what Ellen did. And you'll be hearing about some of the ways she did that from other people. But the important thing to me is that Ellen planted all these seeds without ever expecting applause or praise or some external reward. And not even expecting to see all the trees grown up, although she did get to see some of them blossom. Some of the trees are right here. But knowing that a life lived in love and generosity, with joy and humor, is reward enough. And I, for one, am unspeakably grateful for having known her and learned from her, and now to be able to carry her in my heart for my remaining days. It's time now for a remembrance. I think some of the kids have something to say, so one of you want to come on up and we'll hear your thoughts.
Thank you, Tony. Good evening, everyone. So we are Ellen's 5 grandchildren, and we want to, first of all, thank you all for being here to celebrate with us tonight. Grandmother appreciated and valued everyone that came before us. and the traditions they created and the lasting impact they had on the family. And every year at Thanksgiving, we'd say grace before dinner. And grandmother always contributed, we are thankful for the lives of Virginia and Harry Hyndman, her parents. And in that same sense, we're very excited to be here today to have this opportunity to share our memories and give thanks for her with all of you. So as we've all heard a few times already, grandmother built communities through music, and our family was no exception to that. She inspired us all to learn music and to appreciate it and learn to play instruments. And she took an active role in our learning by playing the piano or the violin or the viola to accompany us on whatever instrument we were learning at the time. Not with the tuba. The tuba's a tough one to go with. We would all descend on her house for Thanksgiving, and we all would bring our instruments, unless they were too big to fly, in which case one would be waiting for us when we landed. And basically round the clock, well, not round the clock, but during all the waking hours of the day, there'd be someone in the living room practicing. And music really became a staple of our family Thanksgiving tradition through the talent show. Which was not explicitly a musical experience, but we all posed up around the piano because music was kind of the center of the talent show. And it was not something that grandmother created. This was something that we ourselves did through our boundless ingenuity. Our excitement of playing and sharing our music was unquestionably a product of who she was and what she did, and it brought her and all of us great joy.
Me. I think one of the greatest things I took away from grandmother and granddad here is that everything with the family has always been teamwork. And our week every year in Door County is the way that we always have shown the greatest strength in that. Even when we were young, the logistics of bringing all of us together, and quite a few of us, never seemed difficult. Everything was always communicated and planned ahead of time. The responsibilities were shared, and everything was efficient. Everything just seemed to be loaded into the bins ahead of time, and it would make its way into the sailboat. And the games and the arts and crafts, the keyboard and the cooking supplies, beach toys, it was simply all there because the communication and the teamwork that grandmother and granddad displayed for us were simply perfect. And as time has passed, that has flowed down to us somewhat. We've picked up some of this logistics and planning, and we do our best. And maybe it's not as, even us, I think we cannot quite replicate how effective the grandmother and granddad's teamwork was, but we take a lot of happiness in the responsibility just because it's the way that grandmother taught us to do.
Grandmother was the coolest grandparent a kid could ever ask for, and her basement in Kenosha was a really big part of that. The basement was a young kid's just dream. It was the perfect place to keep any number of young kids entertained for any amount of time. There was the wall of arts and crafts, a whole other wall of board games and puzzles and handheld games. The mini trampoline, the yoga ball, and the air bike, whose significance we cannot elaborate on. A very special duck puppet, Legos, everything. Upon arrival at the house in Kenosha, we would all immediately descend onto the basement and start our crafts, make the talent show sign-up list, post signs all over the house, make scavenger hunts, build forts out of cardboard boxes, which would eventually become Fort Cousin, and generally set up Kid Central. You would expect that with 5 kids, this would eventually turn into some sort of conflict, and it did, but somehow every grandmother created a place where every squabble was calmly mediated and situated before, someone could get hurt, because we were using the iron unsupervised. And as we grew older, the magic of the basement never wore off. Even if we found ourselves doing more problem sets and less model magic, it'll always be a place that she built for us to grow together.
Not only did she make us this space, but our grandmother made sure that coming into this space was a regular, highly planned, very organized, and scheduled occurrence. We could always count on seeing everyone every August for Door County and November for Thanksgiving. Of course, the in-between months were supplemented by many cross-country travels for Sukkot, Passover, Easter, birthdays, and of course the highly requested babysitting hours. But every goodbye was softened by the known date of our next hello. And every hello, we were given the gift of sustained, reliable, quality time. We didn't have anywhere to go, anything to do while we were together, just to exist in the same space. And we quickly came to take this very seriously. Layovers for 48 hours at Lake Michigan, driving across Wisconsin for a hug and a meal just to drive right back the next day. And this type of time and dedication is not something that everyone is afforded, but our grandmother made sure that it would be for us. Even as physical distance shifts and new careers, degrees, and new partners, we have a deep-set precedent that our time together will always be prioritized. So, thank you, grandmother. We promise we will always come together.
It means so much for us to be here today, sharing our memories of grandmother with you all and reflecting on her role in our lives. And we're so grateful to be surrounded by so many people who knew and loved her, just as we did. And we'd like to take a moment to share our appreciation for some of the people who are carrying on her legacy and upholding her values, the values with which she lived her life. First of all, we'd like to thank the Olympia Brown community, which was such an important part of grandmother's life here in Kenosha, for helping to bring us all together for this celebration. We want to thank our cousins, Anna and John Williams, for continuing the Thanksgiving traditions at the house in Kenosha and preserving the memories that were created in that space. We want to thank the many, many family members, Ella, Bruce, and Chili Lambert, and so many others who have carried on her love for music at our family gatherings. We are so grateful for Granddad, who held so many responsibilities in the last few years, for the way he cared for grandmother and made sure she had everything she needed, just as grandmother did for us when we were young. We are so thankful for our parents, Steve, Alexandra, Liesl, and Aaron, who have driven so many cars, booked so many flights, sent so many logistical emails to make sure that no matter how hectic our lives become, there's always a way for us to see our family. We are truly blessed by grandmother's impact on our lives, and we're proud to carry on her traditions and her values for the rest of our lives.
I think Ruth Bradford Johnson has something to share.
So I'm Ruth Bradford Johnson, a longtime member of Olympia Brown Unitarian Universalist Church, and fortunate to have called Ellen Schmidt a friend for all that time. So just a few weeks ago, we had a service of strong women of Olympia Brown Church, and it was just a week before that we learned that Ellen had died. And so, of course, we had to put her into our service really fast. So these are some of the words that I said at that time. Ellen was a very active member of this church from 1976 until 2016 when she and John moved to Hudson. And Ellen was director of religious education from 1990 to 1999. When you heard the news of Ellen's death, undoubtedly you were moved to your memories of her. How did Ellen impact your life? Maybe it was Ellen the musician playing her violin or viola in Racine Symphony Orchestra, or instructing you or your child in Suzuki violin. Maybe you remember Ellen singing with Tony and Diana, John, and Everett Kuiper in the UU Troubadours. Or maybe you were in the audience, or maybe you performed at Obuck's Second Saturday Coffee House. Thank you, Diana and Ellen. You gave many people a chance to perform. Perhaps you or your children benefited from Ellen's time as director of religious education, or when John and Ellen, as Tony said, were advisors to Obuck's middle school youth, not a job everybody will do, by the way, and taught about your sexuality. In looking through the historical record of Obuck, Ellen Schmidt's name appears in the record of almost every committee: aesthetics, sexton, music, nominating, history, religious education. In the oral history of this church, which Ellen helped collect, we did interviews of different groups of members of the church. In that history, Diana Pavao tells that she and Ellen learned early on that Diana would be the committee chair and Ellen the secretary. I learned that if Ellen was involved in a committee, work would happen. You never just talked about it. You did what needed to be done. I also learned, and I think Ellen did too, that I could not say no when Ellen asked me to do something. After all, she was doing everything. Ellen also contributed to the larger Unitarian Universalist Committee. She and Diana attended General Assembly, which is a national meeting of UUs, for over 20 years, and they brought back many ideas that enriched our congregation. Ellen worked to be a credentialed director of religious education. She and Tony, who were really quite the team, wrote an adult religious ed curriculum called A Catechism for Unitarian Universalists. But in my mind, Ellen's true gift was her interactions with children. With her quiet, steady way, kids knew they were safe, valued, and loved. Ellen led the children's choir, where she made tapes so the kids who had not yet mastered reading could still participate. They'd listen and then they could sing. I watched my own little kids do that. My favorite song was I Am a Promise, I'm a Possibility, I'm a promise with a capital P. I'm a great big bundle of potentiality. Ellen believed this, and the children believed it about themselves. And so from the children Ellen influenced, today we have young and middle-aged adults who are musicians, teachers, counselors, moms, dads, defense lawyers, financial analysts, and 2 Unitarian Universalist ministers. So as each in our own way remember all of Ellen's gifts, we give thanks that she was in our lives. And we thank you, John and Stephen and Lisa, for sharing Ellen with all of us.
And I'm hoping that maybe Reverend Hannah Roberts Villeneuve can also say something. This is one of the 2 UU ministers that our congregation produced.
Listening to you talk about your grandmother, it was clear that Ellen had a specific talent for creating magical, welcoming environments in basements. It's a niche, but she was so good at it. Because just the first sentence in my notebook just says, growing up in the basement with Ellen was a special magic. And it was. When I was thinking of what to say, I felt Ellen's presence reminding me that I did not, in fact, have all the answers all on my own and should not expect to. And so I was so happy to text my dear friend Meredith Luco, right? Because part of the special magic that Ellen creates is one where you get to meet other people, where you get to make a community. And that part of the gift of Unitarian Universalism, right, is that you don't have to do it alone. You don't have to face life alone. So I texted Meredith, who became a lifelong friend. I was like, good, I'm glad I asked for some expert help. And together, what we came up with was that growing up in the 90s in Ellen's religious education program was the feeling of mattering, of knowing that you mattered, that you belonged, that you were safe, that you were loved, and that this was a place where you could always come. There was always a place for us. It didn't matter what kind of week we had had. There was always a chair, a song, and what is, over my many years of serving and being a member of other Unitarian Universalist congregations, the best organized RE supply closet I have ever seen in my entire life. I sometimes think about it when I as a minister, I interface with religious education supply closets a lot in my day-to-day life, and I sometimes open the one where I work and fantasize about the one that was in the religious education room when I grew up. But it was more than that, because Ellen's quiet, steady presence also imbued a particularly important life lesson that I think of all the time, but especially right now in our world, which is that doing the right thing, right, staying true to your values, it's not just what Tony said, that it's not that people are going to give you a lot of applause or an award, that you should do it just because. I feel like Ellen also taught me in the religious education program here that doing the right thing is not always cool. It's not always popular. It's not always easy, but that doesn't really matter. That doing the right thing because it's the right thing is what's important. And that what other people think of you, I don't think, I won't use a 4-letter word, but you know.
I could sing it.
Don't. On behalf of Ellen, don't. The gift of growing up in a community where you belonged, where your voice mattered, and where you were treated like the beautiful, miraculous child that you were is, right, it's one thing to give it to your own family, and it's another to dedicate your life to giving it to as many children as possible. And that so many of us who grew up in her religious education program have carried that with us into our lives. She taught me also what it meant to be part of a religious community. That it was not something to be taken lightly. That doesn't mean it was always serious. But that it wasn't just that there was a place for me, right, to belong, and wasn't that nice. There was a place for me because there was work to do, and I had a job. I had a role. There was something important that I needed to contribute, that each and every child needed to contribute. And so when we showed up, it wasn't just for someone to take care of us or occupy us while our parents listened to a sermon. It was because we were building something. We were building a place for each other. And that it is hard to make that true as an adult. And she did it. She did it every Sunday for almost a decade. And she did it in a million tiny ways, both before and after her role as the director of religious education. And it is, I think, just a humble honor to be able to carry some piece of that forward in the work that I do, in the congregation that I serve, and in the life that I live as a Unitarian Universalist. So just a deep gratitude, because I will say I also know that it's not always easy to share your family member with so many people who love them so well. And when their life is so deeply dedicated to the service of others, that is a beautiful but complex gift. And so thank you. Just a deep and profound gratitude to John and to all of you.
Would anyone else like to say a few words? Feel free, just raise your hand if you're interested. All right, come on up. Alexandra?
This is extemporaneous, so as with life, what you get is what you get. I was reminded, listening to the grandkids, many, many years ago, our youngest, Rachel, asked me the question that every child asks a parent at some point in time. Do you know what's coming, Rachel? Good. The element of surprise is good. She said, "Are you going to die one day?" And I said, "Yes. No one lives forever. The likelihood is that we're going to live a long time, and we'll be a part of your life for a very long time. But since you ask, I want you to know that we want to make absolutely sure that you're always safe and you're always cared for and you're always loved. So in the very, you should know that, all of your, you have a lot of great-grandparents. But just in case, we've made arrangements that if anything happened to me and Abba, you would live with grandmother and granddad." And there was a long pause. And Rachel said, "Grandmother and granddad have a really wonderful basement." And I knew everything would be okay, and she knew that as well. And when the grandkids got too big to sleep in Liesel's upstairs bedroom, I mean, we're talking air mattresses, just wall to wall. No one could get up and go to the bathroom in the night without stepping on a cousin. When they got too big to do that, Mom and Dad simply built an escape window into the basement so the basement could become Teen Central. And what my mother and father-in-law taught me was how to love and how to let go. Letting go is not always very easy. But I simply want to say that every good thing I learned about being a mother-in-law, I learned from my mother-in-law.
Anyone else? All right. Yes, Steve, come on up.
I would really like to thank so many people for being here today. It's really a treasure and an honor to see so many people, some of whom I see very frequently, some of whom I see less frequently, some of whom I probably have not seen in 40 years. But everybody came today, and your presence is a support. I'll speak only for myself, but I'm sure that many feel the same way. Just a blessing to have you all here, so thank you for coming. I feel like so many people have spoken, and they've all said different things, and yet there's a common element because my mother was a person of character, and that character in some way or another impressed itself on the people she knew and worked with. I was in the post office a day or two ago, and our post office in Schenectady, New York sells cards, so you can put them right there in the mail without having to leave the post office. And there's a Mother's Day rack, and I'm looking at them anyway, and it says, one falls on one card that says, "Mom, you're the glue that holds us together. I guess that means you're stuck with us." And I was like, okay, I'm not buying it because that's not where we are, but that just leaped out at me at that moment because that was very much Ellen, as all of you know, and Ellen drew everybody in and found the things that needed to be done to make the community that needed to be because everybody needed to have that community. And I've heard just so many different echoes of that in the stories that people have told tonight, that people have told me all through the last few weeks as we've been sharing remembrances and stories. I want to draw back to trees because there is another story, and I won't tell the whole story because it would go on for a while, but it's the story of Honey the Circle Maker. Some of you will know it, who, and I really will abbreviate it, but who was walking and watching someone planting trees and fell asleep under the shade of a tree and slept for 70 years. It's a precursor to the Rip Van Winkle story. And when he woke up, he saw someone planting, but the trees were all 70 years old. And he went to the person and said, "Are you the one that planted these trees?" And the man said to him, "No, my grandfather planted these trees, but because my grandfather planted these trees, now they are here for me to enjoy, and so I am planting further trees for the generation that will come after me." And I've been thinking about that story ever since we started talking about trees, but I wanted to share that particular remembrance because there's a lot of people here who have benefited from a lot of trees that my mother planted. And I know there's a lot of people here who are going to go on, and I'm looking at the younger generation, who are going to go plant those trees for the communities that they live in that will be there for the generations that will come after them. And I want to thank everybody who, while Ellen was with us, assisted her in building the communities that we all got to know her through, and all those who will continue to do so in her memory. Thank you for being here.
I just thought of something else from what you said. Another way to put the theme that we've been talking about is Ellen made us all feel like family. She did. Anyone else? Yes, come on up. If you can speak it out loudly, I'll repeat it if anything, yeah.
I just have a special memory of Ellen that illustrates what everybody's been saying. Shortly after she had cancer, and her hair still isn't grown out, I got cancer. And I had a bad leg medically and was in a wheelchair. And Ellen came every time it was time for me to have chemo in Milwaukee. Ellen came, put my wheelchair in the back of the car, and drove me to my chemo, and sat right there the whole time that I was receiving it. Even when I would fall asleep, I would wake up and there she would be. And I just want the family to know that the conversation on the way up and back was about her loving family, how much she loved all of them.
All right. If you didn't hear all of that, Ellen would bring her up for her cancer all the way up to Milwaukee. It was a long trip, and would stay there with her. And even if you fell asleep, Ellen was still there. You knew you'd wake up and she would be there. So you became part of her family. But she talked about her family, and so you know how important that was. Thank you. Anyone else? All right. Yes, come on up.
I have to collect myself here. I was very thankful to Ellen for bringing us into this side of the family. We had gone to Thanksgiving every year. And one year, Steve and Alexandra were off. I don't exactly remember what they were doing for a week in Door County. And she had the idea to bring me and my parents up to the week, and ever since then, we've been going up. Even when Steve and Alexandra came back, we were welcome back every year. And there are 2 weeks in the entire year that I look forward to every single year. Door County and Thanksgiving. And when I tell people that my favorite holiday is Thanksgiving, I get some weird looks. It's not a lot of people's favorite holiday. That's usually when people come together and they argue about politics. I don't think that's a lot of people's favorite holiday. But for me it is, because of Ellen's efforts to bring us together, even if we weren't of quite direct lineage from her, and I really appreciate being able to have those 2 weeks a year that I can get together, and I look forward to every single year. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else? All right. In a few moments, we will be lighting candles, and I'd like to tell you how to do that without getting wax on yourself or on your neighbor. And I'll need that. The secret here is that once it's lit, do not tip, all right? So when you're passing the light, or someone's passing the light to you, don't tip your candle towards them if yours is lit. Once it's lit, you just hold it like this. And if the person next to you, go ahead. That was planned. So, when you're passing the light to someone who's next to you, they may wait for you to tip it. You just let them wait. You just let them wait until they realize if they want to get their candle lit, they have to tip it. It's okay to tip it before it's lit, but once it's lit, do not tip. And now I'd like all the family members to come forward with your candles. and to take the flame from this memorial candle and pass it on to all the rest of us. And as you hold your lit candle, look into the flame and think about the things you want to remember about Ellen and the part of her that you might like to become a part of you. Shelter from the storm exists to give you comfort. It is there to keep you warm. And even in those times you are most alone, the memory of love will bring you home. I could rest in place, love. It exists to give you comfort. It is there to keep you warm. And in those times of trouble, when you are most alone, the memory of love. That song is one that Ellen and John and I and Everett did at a number of general assemblies and things like that. Theology of John Denver, and just seems to really fit her. As you have held your candle and thought about how Ellen's life has touched yours, I ask that you remember what's most important to you that you have received, and to take Ellen into your heart, so that her flame becomes a part of yours. I ask you to blow the flame into your heart and know that she is with you always. A reading from The Little Prince. The Little Prince said, "At night you will look up at the stars. Where I live, everything is so small that I cannot show you where my star is to be found. It's better like that. My star will be just one of the stars for you. And so you will love to watch all the stars in the heavens. They will all be your friends. And besides, I'm going to make you a present." He laughed again. "Ah, little prince, dear little prince, I love to hear that laughter." "That is my present," he said, "just that." "What are you trying to say?" I asked. All people have the stars, he said, but they are not the same things for different people. For some who are travelers, the stars are guides. For others, they are no more than little lights in the sky. For others who are scholars, they are problems. But all these stars are silent. You alone will have the stars as no one else has them. What are you trying to say? I asked. In one of the stars I shall be living. In one of them I shall be laughing. And so it will be as if all the stars were laughing when you look out at the sky at night. You, only you, will have stars that can laugh. And he laughed again. And when your sorrow is comforted, for time soothes all sorrows, you will be content that you know me. You will always be my friend. You will want to laugh with me. And you will sometimes open your window so, just for that pleasure. And your friends will be properly astonished to see you laughing as you look up at the sky. And then you will say to them, yes, the stars always make me laugh. And they will think you are crazy. And he laughed again. It will be as if, in place of the stars, I had given you a great number of little bells that knew how to laugh. Well, Ellen, it'll be more than the stars for us that will make us laugh and smile. We'll hear you when we listen to a classical violin or a country fiddle or a ukulele. We'll see you in cardboard forts on walls of arts and crafts and magical basements. We'll hear you in a John Denver song or the Good Witch and the Wizard of Oz singing, come out, wherever you are, which had a wonderful meaning when she sang that. We'll see you in a Christmas pageant and highly planned activities or children's choir, especially if they're reading the lyrics from a cardboard sign. We'll see you when we find someone who equally loves directing church Sunday school, singing Beatles songs, and editing church bylaws. Someone equally adept at teaching physical therapy, Sunday school, gymnastics, Suzuki violin, and how to use birth control. And always giving the gift of quality time that makes you feel you matter. We'll see and hear you everywhere, Ellen, and we'll be grateful every time. Gather the stars if you wish it so. Gather the songs and keep them. Gather the faces of women and men. Gather together the years and the years. And then loosen your hands and let go and let the stars be stars and the songs be songs and the faces and memories your special gift. Loosen your hands, let go, and say goodbye. And then lift up those hands, those very same hands. Lift them up to bless one another. Amen. This concludes the service, but we have a great prelude, a postlude coming up.